Hello, I'm Dr. James Guy. I'm a professor of clarinet and saxophone at the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, Missouri. We're going to take a look at set 1 of the Missouri All-State Saxophone Audition etudes right now. This is going to be page 6, number 6, in F major. We're going to talk about some tricky little fingerings here that can make this whole piece work a lot better. Talk about some tempos, talk about some of these ornaments, and I'll demonstrate them for you, and hopefully that will make things a little bit more clear for you. So, one of the first things we want to do with this etude is establish a tempo for it. I think the tempo ought to be somewhere around 60, 63, 66 for the piece. It's marked andante. Andante can usually be described more figuratively as comfortable walking tempo. So here's 60. This might be a little too slow for that comfortable walking tempo, but it's a starting point for us. So 60 works. I might myself like to do that just a little bit faster than that. But it's always best to start these things slow and get them under control, know exactly where you're going. This one can be done at the 8th note. We can start it much slower at the 8th note. I'm going to drop it down to 100 for the 8th note, so that's going to be the same as quarter note equals 50. So that's going to be quite a bit slower than what we were just doing here. There we go. That's quite a bit slower. But that might be where you have to start this to get it all worked out. So, just some suggestions there. There are lots of tricky things through here. I've got all my measures numbered, so that might be a good idea for you. Just number all your measures, pause what you're watching on YouTube here, number all the measures, and that way you know exactly what I'm talking about and where I'm talking about it. So, first problem comes in measure 5. We've got a turn there. He has a footnote. He has number 1 above that turn, which means refer down to the bottom of the page. In actuality, what Voxman has given us there is close to the way that trill is performed, or that turn is performed, but not exactly what we should be doing right there. Actually, it should be like number 2, which has 4 32nd notes in it, except that that last 32nd note that we're going to have to add will be another F. That turn will come all the way back around to another F, and then we have to re-articulate the F, and that's what is not very clear here. So I'll do that for you. Hear how I'm re-articulating that F there? Okay, and my tempo is about 1, 2, ti-da-da-da-ti-ya-dum. Is how I would do that one. It's just a little slightly different, but that F does need to be re-articulated. Okay, in measure 6, we're going to do pretty much what he says down there at the bottom of the page. Now, this turn is going to go from A up to B natural. That's what the natural sign means above the turn. It's going to go back to A. It's going to go down to G sharp. That's what the sharp sign means on the bottom side of the turn. So that's the way that one would go. Ignore that middle example because I didn't end on the right note. Okay, in this etude then too, there's lots and lots of phrase endings, and many of these phrase endings, like the second line, measure 8, measure 9, measure 10, all end on a quarter note. Okay, it's best to put a line there and extend that quarter note all the way over to the rest, because that's really what we have to do. everything goes all the way through the count, all the way to the beginning of the next count, and actually it tapers slightly in the beginning of that next rest. Okay. And as you may have noticed, I put a little crescendo through that whole sequence there, putting a little psi motive in, just as he has written. But each one of those ascending steps, the E, the F, and the F sharp, looking at those bottom notes, each one gets just a little bit louder. And he hasn't written in a general dynamic like that, but I think it makes perfect sense musically to go ahead and do that. Okay, at measure 12, okay, those things are pretty awkward. Actually, what those are, they're turns that are just kind of written out for us. So, how I'm going to do it, I'm going to start with regular middle finger C. I'm going to cross the break to D. When I come back to C, I'm going to go to chromatic C and then down to B natural. So let me do that slowly. So regular C, cross the break to D, back to chromatic C, which is going to be B natural fingering and middle side key. That makes a C. And that's a perfect place to use that, and then down to B natural. Otherwise it's going to be and messing around, and we get notes in between. This smooths that out a lot, and we're going to need this side key C later on anyhow. So that's how I would approach those two turns in measure 12 and measure 13. Okay, measure 14, I've already played that turn for you, but I'll do it again. I'll start there. Breath mark right there, because that's the beginning of the new phrase. I'm going to put a breath mark there at 20 at that point. And let's back up and talk about this low C. Sometimes low C's don't start very easily. If your instrument has a little leak in it, that's going to be a problem. We get this little grunt at the beginning of the low C. Here's a little trick you might try. Finger the low C and take your index finger and pop down that F pad. You can see what I'm doing, and you can probably hear that sound starting already. The note is already starting, and I haven't done anything with the reed. So what I'm going to do is pop that finger down and set the air in motion inside the saxophone, and then put the air to it and see if I can't get that note to respond just a little bit quicker here. It worked a couple of times there. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. But okay, we left off back at measure 20 after putting a breath mark in there, and we're going to go up to the high D. And on that high D, that can get pretty shrill and bright because that's the point, that's the top of the crescendo. So I'm going to damp down that high D by putting down my two fingers here in the right hand. The tone quality fits the line better, and it brings the pitch down a little bit too. So. Okay, nothing too tricky in there. If you're C sharp up there, high C sharp, you can put down those same two fingers and damp that down a little bit too. Bring the pitch down, smooth out the change in tone color going on up.